Alright guys, what's going on? It feels great to be back. Today's topic is about why I believe urgency generates results. This is a really important topic because you may know people around you who are talking about their intentions. They have certain goals, whether it be for fitness or anything outside of that, but obviously this is a fitness channel, so I'll be linking in more to fitness for the sake of this video. But people talk about what they want, and when it really comes down to it, you see them a couple years later and they don't have any results to show for it. They didn't execute. Some of them tried and stopped, some of them didn't even attempt it at all. And that's why I'm making today's video, because I believe that urgency generates results. And this is really important because I've been in the fitness industry for a couple of years now, and I like to say that I'm in the business of people saying, I'll do it later. I hear people all the time putting their health on hold. Whether someone's extremely obese, they just talk about how, it costs too much, I don't have enough time. I don't have the energy to go to the gym, or parking, can't go to the gym, whatever the case is. I've heard there's not one excuse somebody could tell me that I haven't heard before. I have heard pretty much all of them, and it is what it is, but it's okay because that's what videos like this are for. So the first thing when it comes to setting goals, having deadlines and just achieving certain things, is it all starts with the why. If you don't have a strong why, then it's probably not that important to you. But as far as the reason why we make certain adjustments to our life, why we execute on certain things, or why we want certain things, oftentimes because of inspiration or desperation. And in some cases, it could be a mix of both. So I'm gonna transition into a quick story about myself, and I'm gonna make a lot of sense of it when I transition back to you guys. So long story short, grew up as a chess player, really skinny, went to high school, played a lot of basketball, and was still skinny in high school. And I felt really frail, fragile, and it just didn't sit well with me. But keep in mind, I didn't know what the gym was. All I knew was that there were certain bigger people around me, and I wanted to be like that, but I didn't know how to get like that because I just didn't know about the gym. I didn't know anything about it. So what ended up happening was that a couple of years later, one of my last years of high school, I think right after it, was a girl in a relationship, and it didn't end well. She basically kicked me to the curb. So as opposed to me just feeling bad for myself and just playing with my thumbs, just feeling sorry, I told myself, look, I'm gonna make a change. I'm gonna get in good shape, because at that point I found out about the gym, but I didn't have access to a gym membership. So I was just basically starting off with push-ups at home. I had light dumbbells, or just watch TV and just do that. Then when I got to college, I took a weightlifting class, and I started going to the YMCA. So I had access to 2 facilities, and as far as information online was concerned, I was watching guys like Nick Wright, the OGs, Mike Chang, TMW, guys like that, and that's the information I was rolling with. So I used what I had access to financially, and also the information I had access to as well. But the point that I'm trying to make is that once I found out about the gym, I didn't waste a second. I executed it right away, and the reason why is because this was urgent for me. Like I said, it didn't sit well with me, but keep in mind at the time, it was more on a subconscious level in high school. So I didn't really know what to do about it, but I know that I was covering myself up. I know that when I was in high school, I probably wore short sleeves, maybe I could count on 2 hands how many times I wore short sleeves. Always long sleeves, never wore shorts, always wearing pants, extremely skinny. Even my first year of college, I would avoid scales at all costs. I would avoid mirrors, couldn't really look at myself like that. I would get dressed in the dark, real body dysmorphia type of stuff that was happening before I even knew about the gym. But at the same time, decided to conquer it. I'm gonna stop feeling bad for myself. I'm gonna do something about it. And the fact that it was so urgent to me, I took action, and I took action fast. And I started connecting the dots relatively fast, and watching the guys I had access to, and talking to certain coaches. And then what basically ended up happening over time was I told myself, I want to do this for life. I want to be a personal trainer. I want to help other people, because I started building a bit of muscle, started filling up my frame. And then once I became a personal trainer, started getting more certifications, going to more seminars, hiring coaches, just getting deeper in the fitness world. Started my own blog, had a partner who I teamed up with. And then I started, clicking up with, guys like Alex, got on the YouTube channel, made my own YouTube channel. And then long story short, now we're right here, and I'm making this video. So none of this would have happened if I didn't have that urgency. If, for example, if I had great genetics and I was just a huskier guy growing up, whatever the case is, I most likely wouldn't have gone through that whole obstacle. I only went through that obstacle because I graduated high school at like 140, 145. And, that didn't sit well with me. And we all have our own insecurities. Some people it doesn't bother them, but to me personally, especially at the time, it bothered me. And even if I go back, it would still bother me. And if I go back, I wouldn't change anything because, I'm happy with where I am right now. But at the same time, transitioning back to you guys, this all comes down to urgency. And the point that I'm trying to make with this video is that if it's not urgent, you're most likely not going to budge. Nothing's most likely going to happen. And I'm going to link it back to what I like to call the emergency scale. So I'm sure you could find better scales online, but there's just one I came up with myself. Do what you want with it. So basically you have two extremes. You got 0 and you got 100, and you got anything in between. So 0 on the scale would be, for example, something that's not urgent, and if it never even gets done, it's not a big deal anyways because it's such low priority. Whereas the other end of the spectrum would be you have to do this immediately. You can't even wait for this. So a good example would be, just without thinking too hard, 0 on the scale for me would be learning an instrument. Me personally, I'm more of a listener when it comes to music, so if I don't learn an instrument throughout my whole life, it wouldn't really bother me. It would probably sit pretty well. It's just not that much of a big deal. But if you fast forward, if you go up the scale, let's say you go to like 20% or even 15, this should be like learning another language. I'm very fluent in English and French, and learning a third language is just not a priority for me right now. I could for sure benefit from, learning some Spanish or something like that, but it's just not urgent right now. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna put it on the back burner. Maybe I'll learn it at like 40 years old or something. Maybe I'll get on an app and just, take quick lessons. But right now, I'm not concerned about that. So it's not gonna get done. But let's say you go to the other end of the spectrum. Let's say you go to 100% on this urgency scale. Say, knock on wood, there's a fire in my place. I have to act right now. This isn't even a thing where I'd have to wait a day. This is how I have to do immediately. And when it comes to building muscle, if my place being on fire is 100, I would say building muscle would be like 80%, maybe 85%. That's something that did not sit well with me at all, and I decided to take action. So if building muscle, or if any other goal, but for the sake of this video, getting jacked doesn't rank high on your urgency scale, it's gonna get put on the back burner, and you're gonna be one of those people who are just gonna say, I'm gonna be a beast in 2025, or I'm gonna be a beast in you're gonna keep postponing it. You're gonna be 25, nothing, 30, nothing, 35, and this isn't bad, but where it could get problematic is if you genuinely want it. If this is something that you really crave and you really wanna, take your physique to the next level, then it is something that you should take into consideration, So you could create the scale yourself, start reevaluating, your values and your priorities for the year of 2023, for, the New Year's resolution, for whatever you want to call it, and start focusing on what you really want this year. And if building muscle really is important, then put more of a priority on it. So this is actually why execution is so important, because execution and urgency are tied together. They're very close. And what I respect about, for instance, like these calisthenics channels, is that the people making these videos oftentimes will be like, look, this may not be the optimal way, but you could start right now. You have no money, no gym membership, no problem. You have a floor, you have a wall, you could start right now. And oftentimes what people do is they postpone their goals. They tell themselves that they want something, they want to start, they want to start a channel, but it's like, I don't have a camera, I don't have a tripod, I don't have a mic, I don't have enough money to get started. They want to get a great physique, and they're like, I can't really afford the supplements, which you don't even need, by the way. It's just like the icing on the cake. Or they'll say, I don't have a gym membership, I don't have the money for it, so I'm just gonna put it on hold. And basically what they're doing is they're postponing their greatness. And what I like about, the calisthenics channels is that they tell you, look, you don't need anything. Go to the park, execute, get started. It doesn't matter. Learn along the way. Take up a second job or work overtime, get more hours so you could get that gym membership, so you could start training. And the same thing could be said about, I'm getting a bit off topic here, but people who over-consume information. They'll watch 3 hours of podcasts, which podcasts are great. I have a podcast on my channel too, but if you just overconsume, that's another procrastination strategy, because you're like, oh, well, I don't have time. Well, the reality is maybe you don't have the money, but most people have the time. Most people have the time to start executing. They just have to start reevaluating their habits. And if you spend, for example, an hour in the morning on your phone and an hour at night just scrolling through social media, not doing anything, you could have got your session in there. You could have got at least 30 minutes to an hour there. Basic bodyweight workout. Is it optimal? Probably not, but for right now, sometimes a suboptimal approach is an optimal approach. So if that's what it takes to really get your momentum started, then so be it. So that brings me on to the next point, is that sometimes, unfortunately, what sparks the why is not always the most positive thing. And I'll be talking about this in another video, but to give you guys a quick snippet, like I just mentioned, what got me a bit of momentum was that breakup. It didn't sit well with me, but and this is my first one as well. And obviously, it was bound to happen, but at the same time, that did spark something in me. So sometimes that's what it takes for people to start lifting. And I'm speaking from personal experience, and I've also had a lot of clients I've worked with in the past, even clients I work with right now, who they would tell me in the consultation room that things didn't go well with their women, and girls would tell me, they wouldn't go well with their guy they're with. And that's one of the reasons why that was what lit a fire under them. That's what made them start lifting. So we have to stop, saying, oh, this is a toxic reason to start training. We're not always going to start training for the best reasons. And like I mentioned, there's going to be other reasons outside of fitness. I'm just linking it to fitness for the sake of this video. But, it's very rare that I've met someone who told me, look, Phil, I want to start training because of the health benefits. Oftentimes with some trauma, like I mentioned, inspiration or desperation. Yes, it's true, inspiration happens at times, but oftentimes it's desperation. People, they don't know what to do with themselves, and it's like a person who's just drowning in a pool. They're going to grab onto anything, and oftentimes they'll grab onto something positive like training, and then they'll get their foot on the right road. And yeah, maybe they didn't start for the most positive reasons, but later on down the line, they develop more self-love and they start to feel better about themselves. All right, so there you guys have it. I know I was rambling all over the place in today's segment, but raw video. Hope I got my point across. I hope you understand after watching this that urgency generates results. Urgency is linked to execution. Execution gets you started, and that's what's going to get you where you want to be. It's going to propel you forward. And oftentimes it's funny, you hear people talking about, what doesn't get measured doesn't get accomplished. And this is true, but keep in mind, you can't measure anything if you haven't started yet. So sometimes you have to stop skipping steps and stop thinking so far ahead and just get started. So it's not always going to be pretty, but it all comes down to urgency. If you're in university, for instance, and the teacher says, look, you got 2 weeks to study for this exam, and now all of a sudden the school goes on strike for whatever reason, or something happens and now the exam gets postponed to 2 months as opposed to 2 weeks, all of a sudden it doesn't feel as urgent, and a lot of people will actually take their foot off the gas, and they're going to start getting a bit more complacent, a little bit more sloppy, because they have more time to work with. And this is how a lot of people operate with their goals. There's no urgency, but as opposed to the 2 months, if it actually was 2 weeks and you actually had to get good grades for that exam, there would be more pressure on you, and you would most likely have to perform, to adapt, to get to where you want to be. So that's a good analogy. Think of it like that, and hope that helped you guys out. So revise, your strategy, revise your values. What do you want to be? What's the goal for this year? You're holding the paintbrush. You're the architect of your life. And with that being said, subscribe to the channel. Show the page some love. Let me know down below what you want to see next. Let me know what kind of content you want to see. So let me know if you want some training stuff, you want some more philosophical topics like this. And with that being said, see you guys next time.